And what went before the Planning Commission was a draft that said if the farmer and rancher has 90 to 95% of their ag in production agriculture, that they could hold these special events, and which meant only 5 to 10% of it could be allowed for the use, and there was a maximum of 5 acres. And there was debate at the Planning Commission. They started talking about the dollars, how much the farmer's making versus from agriculture versus holding a special events, and then it has to relate to agriculture. We see that if you go this route, you now have 2 interpretations of what secondary and incidental means, because the wineries and the nonprofits can hold special events that have nothing to do with agriculture on ag zone land, and yet you're going to limit in other areas. Next, we have the nonprofit events, and it is allowed on the ag lands, but you can't charge for the use of your facility or the land, but there is no permit, and there'll be some sort of a fee. That sounds good. However, at the December meeting, they were looking at capping it, and it was a unanimous vote from the Planning Commission to cap it at 300 people. And once you hit that 300 people, then you're going to increase the permit. And if you go to a minor use permit, then you're looking at $6,000 to whatever $1,000 just for the permit. So now you have a farmer who can't hold special events, but they can hold nonprofit events. And if it goes over 300, they're going to have to pay the $6,000 at least just to get the permit, and they have no way to recoup the cost of that permit. And that's a huge disincentive. And I don't think they realized what the impact of that was going to be. And the Ag Tourism Coalition did keep the 300 attendees off their draft, yet the Planning Commission or planning staff did keep it on. And again, that's another content disagreement. We have argued from the beginning that there needs to be an exemption for government and valid ag nonprofits when doing educational activities. We have the UC Cooperative Extension, our farm advisors, Central Coast Vineyard team that agriculture looks to help them in educating ourselves and the public. The Chamber of Commerce in the San Luis Chamber has an ag tour on part of their leadership program, of which we, Farm Bureau, help them with. And if this is to go in place, then we would require from our farmers that we go tour and take the tallies, for example, that they now are going to have to go down to the county, fill out an application permit. The nonprofit would have to sign on as well. They have to pay a fee. They have to notify their neighbors 1,000 feet from the boundaries. They need to give 30 days notice before the event. And if you ask them again, you're going to have, they'll have to have an annual renewal and to pay another fee. Another area that we're concerned about is the continual use of the Napa model as the model that this county is going to use. What Napa did is put a hammer to the wineries and made it very restrictive. And we asked the question, why are we not using our winery ordinance as the basis? That's a page and a half to define that ordinance. And then the winery folks are concerned about this because of that and have every right to be. And lastly, the Ag Tourism draft, it was stated by the Ag Tourism Coalition and by 2 planning commissioners that the content of the 2 were the same. It was just a reformatting. I've already identified a few content differences, but I think one of the ones that just really stood out for me is under the revocation of a permit. The way the ordinance is written right now, it's just basic language that, if you do something wrong with the ordinance, whatever that may be, according to the land use ordinance, your permit may be revoked. We even had it where you had 3 substantive complaints within a 6-month period, your permit was revoked. The Ag Tourism Coalition's draft does not say anything about the 3 complaints. In fact, it goes further. It has its own section now. It's expanded on it, and it has one bullet that says you can have your permit revoked if the permittee violates or attempts to violate any law of the state of California or any provision of this chapter or any county ordinance. There is no nexus to the draft ordinance before us. So we see there's a lot of concerns that need to be answered. We don't want to see it glossed over by the parts of the ordinance that we all agree upon. And I encourage all of you to attend the Planning Commission meeting on Thursday. And if you cannot do that, be sure that you write your supervisors and your Planning Commission to know how you feel about this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I'm going to turn it over to Kim Pisciuto, who's the co-chair of the Ag Tourism Coalition, and let her explain
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. I'd be happy to take questions concerning the comments that Jackie Crabb just made about the ag tourism version during the question and answer time, but I'd like to use my time to address the substance of the questions before us. So first of all, thank you Supervisor Hill, and thank you to the Chamber for organizing the information sharing today. The ag tourism proposals are designed to give agriculturalists new and expanded ways to supplement their farm income and to increase tourism to our area. The proposals also respect the fact that increasing tourism in rural areas will have many impacts. Not only does tourism require taxpayer-funded infrastructure, but it can also cumulatively exhaust the rural neighborhoods upon which it depends. There will be several ag tourism proposals: a retail proposal to allow farm stands, a processing proposal to encourage value-added farm products like jam and olive oil, lodging to make farm stays easier, rural recreation to cover things like trail rides and dude ranches, and of course, events. Each is designed to create new revenue streams for our local farmers and ranchers, to increase the profitability of their ag operation, as well as to increase real opportunities for sustainable tourism. There are several alarming assertions circulating that may have brought you here today. The truth is, more events will be allowed with either no permit or an over-the-counter permit, easier and less expensive than the current rules. It will be very easy to hold nonprofit and educational events. These rules will not affect wineries in any way. They can continue to do everything they're allowed to do today. An entirely new category of income-producing events will be allowed: large ag events that will create new opportunities for event-related businesses like caterers, of which I am one, musicians, and party rental companies. Commercial events, including weddings, will be allowed in ag and rural areas in several different ways. During the Q&A, please ask me how. In developing the proposals, the main question was how much commercialization of ag and rural land can we safely promote without impacting agriculture and exhausting rural neighborhoods? How wide should we open the door? Should we abandon our ag goals and policies and protections of ag land and rural residents in order to allow businesses that are unrelated to ag on ag land? In an effort to relieve our current economic hardship, shall we look for short-term solutions with very costly long-term consequences, or shall we look for long-term sustainable solutions? Shall we create competitors for downtown businesses, or decide certain types of commercial activities are best suited to downtown and commercial zones? The proposal strikes a balance between the desire to increase economic opportunity and the need to preserve our ag and rural neighborhoods for their intended and protected uses. We can do both. Ag land is a finite commodity, and we protect it with a special zoning category because you can't just go out and make more of it. It is essential to preserve ag land for many reasons, not the least of which is food production and food security, but ag land also provides our county with much of its open space and rural character, and it adds the quality of life and desirability as a tourist destination. Our ag goals require us to conserve agricultural resources and preserve ag land. Ag Policy 6 recognizes that some additional accessory uses are appropriate on ag land, but it allows those extra uses only to real agriculturalists, and it further requires the ag use to be secondary and incidental to that on-site agriculture. Today, if you're a farmer, you can have a harvest festival, but you must get a minor use permit that costs between $3,000 and $5,000 and takes about a year. That's the rule today. If there's no production ag on site, the Land Use Ordinance still provides for some additional uses, but it recognizes that ag and rural lands are also residential in nature. So while there are allowed uses, they are only allowed when the burden on the neighborhood is very small. Under today's home occupation rules, you may have a home office, a small repair shop, teach music or art lessons, or hold a Tupperware party, but the maximum number of trips allowed per day is 10. And employees are prohibited. Low impact. The events proposal will expand the types of events allowed and lower the permit required when the cumulative burdens are not so large as to change the nature of the neighborhood or negatively impact ag operations. For example, the proposal will allow small events for up to 50 people without a permit. These could be of any commercial type. They could occur any day of the year. While small, these events can be very lucrative.